Welcome to the WWE podcast, and huge news, guys. Major news. This is news that I'm imagining you've heard at this point, as social media has made this whole news story trend. And at one point, Brock Lesnar was trending. We'll talk about that, even though I know there was some updates based on SmackDown's outcome. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen SmackDown, then this is your warning. But let's talk about the big news story, guys. A news story I didn't know when or if I would ever report. And that is Vince McMahon has retired. Officially, Vince McMahon has retired at the age of 77 years old. He has stepped away. Do we think that it's a coincidence that Vince is stepping away because of his age? Of course not. I mean, this has 100% to do with the investigation, the hush money that likely was going to get worse. Every time I heard an update, it was getting worse for Vince and worse for Vince, and he did the right thing by stepping away. Now, it doesn't look like he has stepped away and then taken some lesser role. He has retired. He has stepped away from the company. It looks like completely. That doesn't mean he can't have input, right? It doesn't mean that just because he's gone from the company that Vince won't still be involved in some unofficial capacity. So even though Vince is technically gone from WWE, don't expect a lot of massive changes. I know that this is a day that I know a lot of people celebrate. I know a lot of people out there, and I'm not going to name names, that are very happy about today. A lot of people are they're elated that finally Vince McMahon, the problem, the source of the problem that WWE has had forever is gone. Well, even if that's the case, just for argument's sake, you have a chip off the old block of Stephanie McMahon, who has taken the role and assumed the role now of not just interim, but looks like permanent CEO, as well as Nick Kahn, who jumped and bursted onto the scene a couple of years ago, helped Vince McMahon clear house with those hundreds of firings, and now he and Stephanie McMahon have taken the reins of the WWE over. So before we go any further, if you guys haven't heard it already, or if you have, let's just review what Vince said in a tweet. This is what he said. As I approach 77 years old, I feel it's time for me to retire as chairman and CEO of WWE. Well, first of all, Vince, it's nothing to do with your age. We all know what this is really in reference to. Throughout the years, it's been a privilege to help WWE bring you joy, inspire you, thrill you, surprise you, and always entertain you. I would like to thank my family for mightily contributing to our success, and I would also like to thank all of our past and present superstars and employees for their dedication and passion for our brand. Most importantly, I would like to thank our fans for allowing us into your homes every week and being your choice of entertainment. I hold the deepest appreciation for admiration for our generations of fans all over the world who have liked, currently like, and sometimes even love our form of sports entertainment. First of all, sports is entertainment by its very nature. It's kind of duplicative. I never really understood the term sports entertainment. You break down what that means. Sports entertainment. It's like sports is entertaining. They tried to create something that was kind of a bit duplicative. Anyway, he said, our global audience can take comfort in knowing WWE will continue to entertain you with the same fervor, dedication, and passion as always. I'm extremely confident in the continued success of WWE, and I leave our company in the capable hands of an extraordinary group of superstars, employees, and executives. In particular, both chairwoman and co-CEO. Oh, well, that's news. I missed that part. Co-CEO Stephanie McMahon and co-CEO Nick Kahn. As the majority shareholder, here we go. Here's the key, guys. As the majority shareholder, I will continue to support WWE in any way I can. My personal thanks to our community and business partners, shareholders, and board of directors for their guidance and support through the years. Then, now, forever, together. Okay, that's a very interesting tidbit at the end. Two things that I somehow missed here, and that is Nick Kahn is involved. I mentioned that, but he's the co-CEO with Stephanie. So assuming a much higher role than he did when he was with Vince. I think he was president. I think that was his title. But now he's been essentially sharing the spot, sharing that top seat with Steph. So that's interesting, and we'll see if any changes come from that. But if you're looking for Vince to have some influence still, well, it looks like he's gonna. As the majority shareholder, he still has say in what WWE does, even if he's just a shareholder like the rest of us. If you own stock in WWE, he has the largest say in what WWE does to some degree, given he is the majority shareholder. And until he gives that up and eventually dies, Vince McMahon, in some way, like it or not, will have a say and an impact on the WWE. Now, he may not be involved in the day-to-day creative. We'll have to see. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for the creative meetings to see if Vince is still there in some way. If even though he's technically on paper not the CEO anymore, that he still is just doing the normal stuff, pretending that he's still there. It's like, I think I made this reference before. If you guys have seen Milton, it's on Office Space, the movie Office Space, which came out in the late 90s. Great movie, by the way, especially if you actually work in an office at a cube. It's super relatable. But Milton, a character in that movie, if you guys haven't seen it, the short of it is he's a character in the movie that doesn't know he's fired, and he continues to just do his job, and he isn't getting paid for it. And I feel like that is what Vince might do. This is something, if anybody thinks that Vince McMahon is just going to be sitting at home now, just propping up his feet, doing something completely different, not doing anything WWE related, I don't know what to tell you. It's not going to happen. Now, again, on paper, he's gone, and it's a smart move from a PR perspective, from a shareholder, stockholder, and if you really care about WWE, he would step aside, and he did, and he has, because he knew that the majority of the ongoing investigation was just going to get worse and worse for him, which by proxy will hurt the company's image, probably drop the share price. It would create bad press. It's not a good time for that, all that. And so he did the right thing. He did the selfless thing. Now, I'm not coming to Vince McMahon's aid when it comes to his activities with what he did with the $12 million and probably more. And there's probably a whole bunch of other stuff that we never knew Vince did that he could probably get maybe even arrested for. Right. I mean, unfortunately, this is not unique to WWE. I'm sure it's in every large organization. It's just kind of a fact. But I'm not coming to the defense of Vince saying that, what he did was fine. I'm not. No, of course not. But my point is that he did the selfless thing, the right thing. Some would say the only thing, the only choice he really had in stepping aside, stepping down, not just aside, I should say, stepping truly down on paper anyway. But like I said, I think Vince will have still some impact given he's the majority shareholder. He legally has that right. He does. So now, again, that doesn't mean he's going to be involved in everything day to day. I doubt it. We'll never know as fans truly how much impact he still has. I would imagine that they'll keep that hush hush. They'll on pay, or at least on the surface, on the front, they won't make it look like Vince has any more impact. Oh no, they tell the press, no, he's done. He's not involved. But let's all be real. We know that Vince McMahon, this is his life. This still is his life. It will be his life until he doesn't have a life. So we can all celebrate, or many of you can celebrate. I'm actually kind of split on the whole thing. I'll get into more of that in a second. But if you want to celebrate Vince being gone, you're like, woohoo, everything's perfect now. Great. We got the cancer out of WWE. Vince McMahon's gone. I need to reiterate to you, he legally has the right to have a say in what goes on in WWE because he's the majority shareholder. So that's one thing. On top of the fact, even if he wasn't the majority shareholder, let's be real, that he's going to be involved in some way. People reaching out to him for his expertise, for his opinions on things. He may not have the final say, but the respect for Vince doesn't just disappear because he steps aside and steps down. People may, from a moral standpoint, look at him and go, "Oh man, what he did it's terrible." From what he did to his wife and the hush money and oh my God, all that. But from a professional standpoint, the respect doesn't just go away, and how the employees view Vince is probably still the way they view him the way they viewed him today is the way they're going to view him tomorrow. In terms of how they maybe feel about his take on things, or maybe where do they go? How do I do this? What would you suggest with this storyline? How would you do that? Vince is still going to be essentially like this kind of de facto consultant. I think that's what Vince is going to be. He's going to be this unofficial consultant for WWE. They'll never say that, ever. Of course, they'll separate themselves from Vince as best they can outwardly, but inwardly, they're still going to be picking Vince's brain. They're still going to be having Vince in on conversations, maybe when they feel that it won't get out publicly, that he's still, maybe having input or something. So I'm not trying to put a cold or pour cold water on anybody's parade here, but yeah, so that's my opinion. I still think Vince will have somewhat of an impact, maybe a significant impact on what goes on in WWE. And legally, he has the right as a majority shareholder. So there's that. Now, again, I know many of you are celebrating today. I feel a bit mixed on it. And the reason is Vince McMahon, if you take away, he's the hush money. Okay, that just gave people ammunition, right? But you take that away, say that never came out. Vince certainly was becoming a bit senile. He was, he feels a lot like President Biden. Okay, I'm not getting political. It's an objective fact. Just like President Biden, the guy is geriatric. I mean, it's just a fact. He's stumbling over words, much like our president does. He doesn't seem like he's all there half the time. You seeing the parallels between Biden and Vince? Not great, right? Like, it just happens with age, and so I really feel that while even if this scandal didn't come out and he got away with it and was able to cover it and we never knew about it, and again, there's a lot more we probably don't know, but the age of Vince McMahon was certainly starting to show. Now, he may still be going to the gym and everything else, and he's doing everything to fight Mother Nature, but Mother Nature is eventually going to even overtake the great Vince McMahon, and it showed, right? It showed on TV. It showed a lot on TV. I mean, really a crazy amount of on TV of just the way he would speak, and it's hard to understand him, and he just started to look really old. And I think that now, looking back at the reasons he came out the last few times on Raw and SmackDown, when we were saying there's no point, this is stupid, and it still was. I still don't agree with it. It was also a way to kind of say goodbye. When you look back, and he the first time he came out, and he said nothing on Raw, and he said basically just repeating the opening signature of the show, saying then, now, forever, together. And he said, together's the most important point, or important part. And it kind of was a bit of a goodbye. So I understand why he did it. I still don't really think it was a good idea at the time. I thought it was annoying just to come out and say nothing. But I get it, and he just took a couple of minutes to essentially say goodbye. Now, do I think we'll actually see Vince McMahon in WWE again? I do. I think we'll see on camera. I mean, I really do. I think once this blows over, and maybe in like a year, when people move on to the next news cycle. I mean, think of how quickly we move on from things in the news cycle right now. Hell, we just had 20 kids killed in an elementary school in Texas a month ago, maybe less than a month ago. We've already moved on from that. The mass shooting in Buffalo, New York. Well, we've already moved on from that. So you think that the news cycle can't get past Vince McMahon stepping down? The answer is of course not. Or of course they will. We're going to move on, right? We're going to move on to the next thing, and the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. The news cycle won't stick on this too long. So that's a good thing. If you're a Vince McMahon fan, now I'm not saying he's going to come back as a CEO, but my point is maybe when the things really settle down and in a year or so, they have him come back out, maybe as like a, I don't know, host of Raw, or maybe, I don't know, as maybe they do a documentary on him, and they should. If they're smart, and WWE executives, I have to hope there's some brain cells there. They have to know that Vince McMahon's 77. He doesn't have a ton of years in front of him. I mean, maybe 10, right? 10 years is about average. So if we go with the average, so he's got 10 years. And while he still has half a brain, Why would you not want to pick his brain on putting a documentary together? It's Vince McMahon, regardless of what you think of him on a personal level or not. And I know a lot of people that don't like him on a personal level. He's the worst thing that ever happened to pro wrestling, which is, I mean, if anybody that says that Vince is the worst thing that happened to pro wrestling, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You know, like he's the one that took this whole thing global. You wouldn't know what WrestleMania is without Vince McMahon. You wouldn't have The Undertaker without Vince McMahon. You know, Vince McMahon put some crap out there. He has done some really bad storylines, and he's, over the last 5 years, he is the end all be all when it comes to the creative, and he's put out a lot of crappy creative. I get that. But boy, he's given us a lot of memories. And this isn't a eulogy for Vince. But my point is, I could see in a year, after things really calm down and people forget about it and they moved on to whatever, probably talking about the 2024 presidential cycle and maybe whatever war is going on, political stuff, people move on quick. And once this is out of the news cycle and then people settle down and the stockholders and shareholders are kind of settled into feeling comfortable with the new management and things seem to be working well, maybe they bring Vince back for a cameo, and start to really work on a documentary. And that's really what I'd want them to do right now. Have him sit down, not now. I'm sure he's kind of got his own head spinning, but that would be if I was WWE production or A&E or I don't know, hell, Entertainment Tonight. I don't know. Somebody needs to start really thinking about a documentary for Vince McMahon. Now, I wouldn't question him about this. Of course, I wouldn't question him about this right now. My questions to him would just be about his career and just a long-form interview with Vince McMahon. Vince doesn't do a whole lot of interviews. And regardless of what you think about him on a personal level, you can't tell me that long-form interviews with Vince McMahon would not be entertaining as hell. The Pat McAfee interview that he did before WrestleMania this year, it was one of the highest viewed videos that Pat McAfee put on his channel. Why? Because Vince McMahon doesn't do a whole lot of that. Before that, he was on Stone Cold's podcast like 5 years before that. So much like The Undertaker, who has now really just opened up completely to being on podcasts and you really just get an introspective into his mind and his stories and all that. You don't think Vince McMahon has stories? I mean, there's like 50 years of stories we haven't heard from him. There's a lot of content in that head. So when you take out the personal feelings about Vince and you put those aside and you look at this from a professional standpoint, man, WWE production, when appropriate, and A&E or whoever need to, again, when appropriate, when enough time's passed and Vince is willing to do it, documentary. Just do a total encapsulation of Vince McMahon's career, the impact he's had on professional wrestling, how he grew up, with his Vince McMahon Sr. and being under the wing of his father, taking it over from his father, bringing pro wrestling on a global stage. Many people said Vince McMahon killed the wrestling business. He's the one who's responsible for killing the territories. Well, maybe the territories are responsible for destroying themselves by not learning to adapt. So again, my point is, I don't want to go too deep into Vince McMahon's career, but I do want somebody, hopefully somewhere, is thinking about this before Vince is actually gone, and you can't bring him back to talk about his career. If you don't take advantage of this, the next few years while you can, and Vince, again, is deteriorating probably by the day at this age with mental capacity, memories, stories, coherence, this is where you take advantage of it. This is where you'd want Vince in front of a camera. Again, give it some time, not now, but soon, and just talk about his career. Talk about some hilarious stories that he has. Talk about his personal life with Stephanie and Shane. What's his relationship like with Shane? Why not? Why not go scorched earth? What do you have to lose at this point? That's what I'd like to see, is something like that. And I know many of you are celebrating today, popping champagne. This is going to be great. But let me tell you something to those people out there that are, again, thinking that this is all going to be, rainbows and butterflies now that Vince is gone in WWE. Let me just say this. Let's assume, and again, if you heard me in the last 20 minutes, you know that I don't think this is going to be the case, but for argument's sake, let's play the game and assume Vince, he has no contact. He cannot have any influence at all. Let's just play that game. Okay, fine. He's a total non-factor. Right now, it is Stephanie and McMahon and Nick Kahn, and Vince has zero influence, zero contact. Okay? Well, number one, Stephanie McMahon is a chip off the old block. Do you think she's going to radically change how things are done? She's had a lot of influence even when Vince was there. She, according to Jim Ross, who worked with her for how many years, said that she thinks a lot like her dad. She learned a lot from her dad. Now, she's not her dad, but she is as close to Vince McMahon as anybody was. And you don't think that she adopted a lot of the policies, a lot of the procedures, a lot of the mindset that her dad had? So just because Vince is gone, assuming he had no contact and he has no influence, you got Stephanie. I don't think she's radically different. I do not think she's radically different. She may do things a little bit differently certain ways, but if you as fans, us as fans, are looking for radical change creatively and on air, you're not going to see it. It's not going to happen immediately, and it may not ever happen. Because you have to remember, everybody that's in place right now, everybody that is in WWE, from production to creative, the agents backstage, are all and were all hired by Vince McMahon. So what are you going to do? Back up the truck and just deprogram everyone's mind from the way Vince wanted things done? And they're just going to suddenly, you're just going to rehire a totally new batch of people? Of course not. So if we see any change from a significant standpoint, it's going to take time. So I know some people out there are probably thinking things are going to be totally different on Monday Night Raw now that Vince is gone. The answer is no. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I mean, they may outwardly say, oh, well, we're going to continue to build the brand. We're going to do things differently. You're not going to do things differently. At least not right away. It's not a good strategy from a business perspective anyway. If I was somebody working in the company and all of a sudden our leader's gone, I may be fearful, oh my God, things are going to change. Boom, boom, boom. No, you don't want to instill that fear in your employees either. You want to make it feel as if it's just another day. Yes, we have massive news. Vince is gone. But you also don't want to instill radical change immediately for everybody. So from an internal perspective, employee relations to creative and the way things are done, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of change. I just don't. I do not. The only way I think we'd get real change and change as quickly as we could that many of us want from a creative and on-air and storyline perspective is if they sold the company to somebody like Disney, NBC Universal, and then they maybe bring in a totally new set of management and the way they envision pro wrestling. That's the only way, is if someone buys out WWE. That's the only way that I see fast change. But to go from, Vince is gone to, oh, hey, Steph. Well, yeah, you've been here anyway for 25 years, so just continue what we're doing. I mean, sorry, guys. So that's what I think about it. And, I do have mixed feelings. I do. Like, from in one respect, it's like, okay, good. At that level, you shouldn't be doing things like this. Really, at any level, of course, but even especially at that level, doing what you did, of course, is wrong, and it just gave people more of a reason to jump on the bandwagon and try to oust Vince. I also wonder, will the person or persons who are responsible for bringing this to the attention of not Sports Illustrated, was it Wall Street Journal? Are they ever going to come forward? Will we ever know the identity of the people that actually brought this to the news cycle to begin with? It didn't just fall into Wall Street Journal's lap. Right? So, I mean, it's not like they were just sifting through the financials of WWE and said, something doesn't add up here. Of course not. It's somebody internal that had access to those records, that maybe knew about what was going on, and they said, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of Vince. It's time to expose his ass anonymously. So I do wonder if we will ever know the identity or identities of the people involved in leaking this whole story that led to the ousting of Vince McMahon. You do wonder. So Vince McMahon did not kick out of this one, guys. He got hit with a stunner. He went down for the 3 count. And I know many of you are celebrating today. I have mixed feelings because we will never say again, I don't think we'll ever say it again, that Vince McMahon is the chairman and CEO of WWE. Think about that for a second. Think about that. If you're a new fan, maybe that doesn't have the impact that fans who've been watching for many years would feel right now from that statement. But just think about that. Like, forever, that's all we've known is Vince McMahon is the top guy in pro wrestling, that he is the chairman of WWE. It's crazy to think that. And what I could see happening on Monday night, honestly, is Stephanie McMahon coming out on Monday Night Raw, maybe with Nick Kahn, maybe by herself, and not necessarily even addressing anything with her dad, but just saying that, being thankful for her dad, like not addressing anything with the scandal, but just saying, that we're going to continue this legacy. We're going to continue to serve you fans. We're going to just kind of like a goodwill statement. I can absolutely hear her stupid music, which is god awful music, coming out on Monday Night Raw, opening Raw, and just coming in the ring or standing on stage just for a few minutes and giving that kind of, which I actually think was what they will do now that I'm thinking about it. They won't spend much time because it's the final Raw before SummerSlam, but I can definitely see Stephanie McMahon coming out on Monday Night Raw, opening the show and just saying kind of a quick statement, maybe like, again, just a couple of minutes, and just trying to putting everybody at ease because there's a lot of turmoil and chaos going on right now, especially internally. But that's what I would do if I was WWE. From a PR perspective, from a fan's perspective, I think everyone would be very interested to hear Stephanie McMahon and hear what she has to say, even if it's just a couple minutes. I think that'd be sufficient. So Vince McMahon, guys, out of WWE, gone, at least on the surface. So beyond that, and again, we will talk much more about this as things unfold. And you could dive into so much with Vince McMahon, just so much from a career standpoint, what he's done for the business. I know a lot of you don't like it. I know I keep saying that, but I know a lot of you are feeling that. And like, are you defending Vince? I'm defending his accomplishments from a professional standpoint. What he's done for the industry is revolutionary. I know it's cliche, but it's true. And that's really what I'm looking at. I'm not talking about it from a morality standpoint, a personal standpoint. Of course, I don't agree with the decisions he made. Of course, no, I don't. But I'm trying to look at it through the lens of professional contributions to professional wrestling. That's what I'm looking at it through the lens of, because it's easy to jump on the bandwagon here. It's kind of the lazy thing to do right now with everybody just, oh, it's great. I don't know. I want to also kind of, in a way, mourn the loss of one of the biggest, if not, no, the biggest wrestling promoter to ever live. He's not dead yet, but professionally, he's dead. So, but all right, we'll dive much more into Vince, I'm sure, as my co-hosts come on with the SummerSlam review and preview that's coming up this coming week. And boy, we got a lot of podcasts coming up this week, guys, because it is SummerSlam week this coming week. And I'm sure with Casual Wrestling Fan, him and I are going to have the preview show. So Mr. Casual Wrestling Fan, for the first time in I don't know how many months, is joining me a week from tonight, Friday night, for the SummerSlam preview and prediction. Of course, I'm going to try to have a co-host for the review show. Not sure if I'll get that done until Monday or so, but that'll be coming your way too. And nearly every day you'll be hearing from me, so get ready to fall asleep. And so the jam-packed week next week. And I normally never do a Thursday podcast, but given the magnitude of this news, how can I not? Now, this news of Vince McMahon was co-opted at the time by a Brock Lesnar walkout. Now, again, spoiler alert, you've been warned, Brock Lesnar did walk out, according to sources. This is from Fox Sports Illustrated, but decided to come back. He walked back into SmackDown apparently just before showtime and did end up appearing on the show. He appeared at the end of the show. The announcers even said, I think it was Pat McAfee who said, "I thought," and Vince and Michael Cole said, "I did too," alluding to, I thought he walked out. Now, he didn't say that. He just said, "I thought, ... And Cole said, "I did too." And that was it. A very clever way of acknowledging the news that broke, that Brock Lesnar also walked out, that he was mad about the Vince McMahon situation, and he's done, and he got on his private jet, and he flew back to, Saskatchewan. That didn't materialize, as he was talked down apparently, or talked back into fulfilling his contractual obligations, which he should. I don't agree with it. If Brock Lesnar did that, I know he's a businessman, but okay, you're a businessman, so fulfill your end of the contract, buddy. I totally get, and I respect the fact that he's about money, and he wants to make as much money for as little effort as possible, and he's earned it at this point. But you have to do some work to earn that money, and you can't just flake on your contractual obligations. I mean, that's just super unprofessional. So I think they maybe, from a legal standpoint, maybe threatened him a little, and also he was talked down by somebody. So again, that's my assumption. So Brock Lesnar did appear on SmackDown. So it does look like we do indeed have a SummerSlam main event set for Roman versus Brock, and it looks like it'll happen. Now, I think it also not only it like triple solidifies the fact that Brock ain't winning, I gotta say. Now, there was also some news of one of their action figure companies who were making a Brock Lesnar action figure that came with 2 belts. So take that for what it's worth. Grain of salt, of course, but that was one of the news stories also, is that Brock Lesnar's action figure was being made with 2 championship belts. Is there a chance? I'm not going to say impossible, but I literally would give it a 1% chance that Brock wins. Just given what the news story we heard this week of Brock potentially, maybe he did walk out, but then thought better of it and came back to SmackDown. I have an almost guarantee that Brock doesn't win. If I eat my words, I eat my words. I think it's a terrible choice for Brock. I don't care what the situation is. Brock is a terrible choice to beat Roman Reigns. So, massive news. You also wonder if this has any effect on the potential of Rock returning, because Rock and Vince are so close, and if Vince maybe has an influence on The Rock coming back, and maybe Rock doesn't want to be associated with what's going on, so he distances himself and doesn't come back to WWE. Who knows? But this is a major story, guys. Major story. And just as a little fun fact, Vince McMahon bought the company from his father 1982. There's your fun fact. If you ever have trivia, that's your fun fact. 1982. So 40 years Vince McMahon has owned and been in charge of WWE. So 40 years. Congrats to Vince McMahon on that. Of course, not congratulating his actions, but congratulating his professional accomplishments. Not everything was great. A lot of crappy creative. And I know some of you, I just really look at Vince McMahon as, Satan himself. I don't. I look at him from, he has some good, he has some bad, like a lot of us. I know that some of the cuts he made looked brutal. They looked heartless, all that stuff. But he's a for-profit organization. You have to look at that too. This company is a for-profit. Some people, for some reason, feel that that you look at WWE, and when they make cuts, it's like they're, crushing kids' hopes and dreams. Like, I don't understand this, because you're in a for-profit organization. You're working at will. You're not protected by a union. You know that going in. And WWE, first and foremost, serves its sponsors and its shareholders. Like it or not, that's just the reality. And when they need to clean up their balance sheet, make themselves look good for Wall Street, it's cold, it's heartless. Yes to both, but that's the risk you run working in this organization. Nobody's forcing you to work here. So when Vince cuts people, it's bad. I understand. I don't want to see anybody lose their job, but it's just kind of a risk that goes with working for a private organization, especially if you don't have union representation or union protection. So I get it, but some people feel that he's like, there's some kind of charitable not-for-profit organization. That's just not true. So, I mean, you can demonize Vince all you want. It sounds like I'm coming to the defense of him. I'm only coming to the defense of Vince from a professional standpoint. I want to make that very clear. I think I've made that clear 400 times, but I need to keep reiterating it because it doesn't sound good when I'm saying good things about Vince when there's a whole scandal going on and he just stepped down. To me, I separate the two. So that's what I'm trying to do. But overall, I mean, this is a huge day, guys. One that I really thought was 10 years down the line. I didn't believe Vince would give up control of the company until he's literally in the grave. I mean, where one hand is sticking out of the casket, like Undertaker, when somebody buried him alive. And he just, maybe that's what will happen, right? When Vince dies, maybe he just suddenly has a heart attack, dies. They put him in a casket, they bury him, and out of nowhere, you hear like thunder and lightning, and he just sticks his hand up out of the dirt. I feel like that's what's going to happen with Vince, whenever he does actually die. But who knows? I mean, he did defeat God in a tag team match in 2006, was it? I might be wrong on the year. Somewhere around there, he beat God in a tag team match because God teamed with Shawn Michaels against the McMahons. It's a real thing, guys. Go look it up. So anyway, it's going to be very interesting, guys, to see what materializes over the next several weeks, months, years. Does WWE look and feel the same? I think in the short term, you're not going to notice a damn thing. Nothing. Zero is going to be, I think, is going to feel different over the next month, 2 months, maybe up to 6 months. They might start implementing things here and there. But if you're looking for radical change, I think you're going to be severely disappointed. Severely. And so that's just my two cents. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But given what I've heard about Stephanie, given how they run the company, given it's still a McMahon in charge, given the fact that Vince is still the majority shareholder, and that in some way he will unofficially be still contributing, I have serious doubts that if you're looking for radical change creatively or otherwise, that you're going to end up not happy with the result. So there is that. Now, could be wrong, but I don't think I am on that one. So, all right, I think I've rambled enough and repeated myself enough, guys. I appreciate everybody listening to this. Certainly the biggest news story of the day is that, and of course Brock Lesnar, which it does look like he is going to still be intact and still not on his private jet on his way back to his home in Saskatchewan, that he is going to compete at SummerSlam against Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Championship. So that's good. And we get the match as advertised. Even though I'm not super excited about the match, I think it's always, without saying it, I shouldn't have to say this, a good thing to do professionally to meet your contractual obligations, and that's what Brock Lesnar should do. Probably get beat by Roman, and Brock will go back into hibernation until maybe Rumble or WrestleMania, or we don't see Brock for another year. I mean, who knows? That's just what I think what's going to happen with Brock. But at least in the short term, for the next week and a half, Brock Lesnar will be sticking around. Well, only 1 week, really, week and a day. And then probably just go back into the crypt, wherever he is in Saskatchewan. So, guys, so much more we could dive into. And, as we go on in the next week, I'm sure with the emails and voicemails on the mailbag, it's going to be a lot. I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot to say. I'm interested in what you have to say. If you have thoughts or questions or suggestions, check out our mailbag description in the show notes of that particular episode. We have the email and the phone number you can call in and or rather email your comments about this whole story. So thank you everybody for listening. Again, we have a lot more coming up in the next several days and up to the next week with SummerSlam coverage, preview, predictions, Raw review, mailbag, all that, AEW. And I'd encourage you to check out our AEW review show that Mimi just posted with the Fighter Fest Night 2 was just put up earlier today. And Anthony DeMarco did a top 5 of WrestleManias, at least in his opinion, that WWE has ever had. And I'd really encourage you to go check that out. So guys, thanks as always. Take care. Oh, and go ad free at patreon.com/WWE podcast. I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.